of the heart flows the issues of life. And many of these issues stem from one's emotional, mental, and spiritual condition. Such issues may oppress, stifle, and even stagnate one from living a healthy and fulfilling life. So how does one progress past such issues and achieve a state of emotional, mental, and spiritual healing? There's help, so open your heart and prepare your mind. It's time for healing to take place in your life. You're in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, a holistic approach to emotional healing. And now, your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell.
It's just me and you. I feel so lost, 'cause I don't know what to do.
Well, good Sunday morning. It's so good to be with you, and thank you so much for tuning in to Talking with Dr. Toy. Comes your way every Sunday morning. Listen, I am so grateful for you tuning in, and I always want to give my purpose. My purpose is to provide a holistic approach to emotional healing. Therefore, my mission to provide a holistic and restorative therapeutic approach in addressing and resolving issues that adversely affect the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical well-being of individuals who desire to enhance their quality of life. You know, I always want to do a self-care check. How are you? And what did you do for self-care this week? And I think it's worth repeating. Why? Because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Yes. And although we are advocating 365 days, 7 days a week, we should be aware of our mental health. This is a particular month that we really intensify our efforts to address mental health stigma. We intensify our efforts to really encourage people to be aware and cultivate that intentionality of taking care of your mental health. It is so crucial. Again, I keep saying this, but I think it bears worth repeating. The mind and the body are connected. There is no health, not my quote, but I love it. There is no health without mental health. And so I am encouraging you, and some of the reason why we may not attend to our health, especially our mental health, is the stigma that still persists. Now, I do think that we have improved in ways of addressing that stigma, especially, since COVID. It's like a lot of people were struggling. So it's like, it's not so much a stigma in some ways, because we see that everyone is struggling, or a lot of people are struggling during this time of COVID. So that helped to really, I would say, decrease some of the stigma around mental health, but also it didn't eradicate it. So there is still stigma with regards to that. And I love this right here when it talks about just the mental health stigma. It says this refers to negative attitudes, stereotypes, and discriminatory behaviors directed at people experiencing mental health challenges, right? And further, it says this: it often frames mental health illness as a personal weakness or defect rather than a medical condition which can prevent individuals from seeking the care that they need. Right? So let's make it plain that if we sprained our ankle and our ankle was really bad, giving us trouble, we would be like, oh, well, go to the ER, make sure you go to the doctor, or go somewhere and make sure that you get that addressed, because you don't want that to get worse. right? You don't want to do more damage. So we are encouraging people in many cases, not all, but in many cases, we encourage people, if there's something that's physically wrong with you, go get that taken care of, because you don't want that to get worse. And listen, you also want to operate at an optimal level. You can't run or really walk accurately if you have a sprained ankle. So it's something that we can visibly see. And we're like, I want to improve my quality of life. So we get that taken care of. However, when it comes to aspects of mental health, we may perceive that because I'm struggling, that is a weakness. That's a personal defect. Well, I should be strong, and I should be able to overcome all of this. And here's the thing. And this is one of the things I've said to clients is that we cannot overcome aspects of our humanity. We are human. So we're going to be impacted by things that happen in this world. We're going to their biological, situational, all the things that is going to impact us, right? Again, if we live long enough, we're going to age. We're going to get older. We can do things to kind of help us navigate it and stay healthy. But one of the things that we cannot do, we cannot stop ourselves from getting older. It's happening every day that we live. It is happening. And so one of the things that we do, we work within that space. Well, there's this radical acceptance, right? That I'm getting older. So as a result of that, well, maybe some of us are still in denial. I don't know. Whatever it is, but yet and still your body's gonna tell on you that you can't do what you did at 19 and do it at 50, right? So your body's gonna tell the truth. Now some of us may try it, and that's why we gotta slow a roll, right? But even with that, there's an acceptance that I'm gonna get older. Things are not going to work as they used to. And so we make adjustments, we shift, we do some things to kind of help with that. However, we don't, in many cases, do that with regards to our mental health. So when I talk about this self-care check, how are you? What did you do for self-care this week? I'm going back into this definition of self-care, the practice, right? Knowing that there's something that we consistently do, the practice of taking an active role in protecting our own well-being and happiness, taking an active role in protecting our well-being and happiness. So we kind of broke that down. I think it's worth now, Mental Health Awareness Month, I'm going to break it down just a little bit more, right? What are the important words in that definition? Practice, active, protecting, well-being, happiness. These are things that we would love to cultivate in our lives so that we're operating at a level of having a good quality of life. Not a perfect, didn't say perfect, but a good quality of life. And so we come with regards to this concept of community care, right? Community care means people committed to leveraging their privilege to be there for one another in various ways. How did you show up for others, and how did you allow others to show up for you? That's also very important when it comes to that aspect of taking care of our mental health, right? Allowing others to show up for us, receiving help, and also to us showing up for others. And then that self-awareness, I love this. I love that aspect of self-awareness. And that's one of the things one of the questions posed with regards to that. How did you show up for you? Yeah, self-care is taking an active role in protecting your own well-being. And then that self-awareness, how are you showing up for yourself, right? Love this definition of self-awareness. Represents how clearly we see our own values, passions, aspirations, how we see ourselves within our environments, the way in which we react. That includes our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, our strengths and weaknesses, and the impact that we have on others, right? And I love this aspect of self-awareness is your ability to perceive and understand the things that make you who you are as an individual. It is sometimes, listen, let me say this. Sometimes what happens is that, especially if we've experienced trauma, we get into this place where we people please, right? And then we kind of connect that as fawning, that aspect of a post-traumatic trauma response as far as fawning. And when we are, and many of us may experience this where it's like we put others before ourselves, right? We feel guilty when we put in boundaries and all of that. And so basically fawning is this aspect of people pleasing. And here's the definition of fawning. It's an unconscious trauma response where an individual appeases, flatters, and over accommodates others to avoid conflict, to prevent harm, and to establish safety. Right? So, when we talk about those trauma responses, we know that they're not only behavioral, right, neurological, biological, all the things, but it's what we're saying is this: as far as fawning, rather than fighting, fleeing, or freezing, right, fawning seeks to neutralize a threat by becoming appealing and submissive to the aggressor. Now, what does that look like in many cases? Extreme people pleasing, saying yes even when every instinct screams no to keep others happy. Right? And these are some definitions, not my content, but I think it really, really hones in on this aspect of fawning, and I'm going somewhere with this. Abandoning boundaries, setting aside personal values, feelings, and limits to meet the expectations of others. Here's another one. Mirroring, subconsciously adopting the opinions and look, subconsciously, not consciously aware of what's happening. And guess what? That's getting back to that self-awareness, going somewhere with this, right? Mirroring, subconsciously adopting the opinions, interests, or moods of the people around you to prevent rejection or anger. Yes. No, in some ways, it's like we're adopting other people's perspectives and interests and even moods because, again, we don't want any conflict. So in order to prevent us from experiencing rejection or anger, we adopt theirs. And in some ways, we disconnect or maybe in some don't have any clue of our own because we are adopting theirs. We're mirroring in that sense. And then finally, this one, chronic over-functioning. Taking on the emotional or physical burdens of others to maintain a sense of relational security. Wow. Let me say that again. Chronic over-functioning, taking on the emotional or physical burdens of others to maintain a sense of relational security. And that can come in a space of not wanting to experience rejection, not wanting to experience conflict, abandonment in any way. So we chronically overfunction in some ways in order to maintain relational security, even though it may be toxic. Right? This is a trauma response. Now, why am I talking about this today? Because this will impact your ability to cultivate self-awareness in your system. You may struggle with self-awareness because you may be experiencing a trauma response where your personhood, who you are, all the things, they are negated, put on the back burner, sacrificed, buried, because all you can see is what people see me as and how I want to be seen by people. And so our lives are consumed with, and we talked about this before, this impression management, but this is deeper than impression management. This is a survival mechanism where I want to maintain some type of relational security. So I people please. And sometimes I do all of this at the detriment of myself. So self-awareness may be difficult because what I've been learning and what I've been conditioning to do is I don't have self-awareness. I have other awareness, right? But my self-awareness has been compromised and sacrificed, where I can tell you all day long what I perceive other people are saying, what I perceive they need, and what this and this. But when it comes to me, if I ask you a question, well, what do you need? I don't know. Well, what are you experiencing? What emotion are you? Well, I don't know. Right? So that's why when we talk about aspects of mental health awareness, it is important for us to cultivate these things in our life: self-awareness, community care, right? Self-care, and really understand if we are having challenges in being able to cultivate those things in our lives. Could that come back to, or could that be connected to a trauma response? And let me say this, and you say, well, I just need to stop. Let me encourage you and also cultivate a space of compassion. These are trauma responses. What does that mean, Dr. Toy? What that means is that this is not just a matter of your will to stop doing. These things are ingrained not only behaviorally, but look what I'm saying. It's a trauma response, biological, neurological. All of these things are connected. That's why it's so important for us to do our work, right? So what work does that entail? Well, let's go back to this definition of mental health by the World Health Organization. I love this definition of mental health. It says this: mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stressors of life, realize their abilities, learn and work well, and contribute to their community. Let's go back over that again. Mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stressors of life, realize their abilities, learn and work well, and contribute to their community. So let's just do a brief assessment according to this definition. All right, mental health is a state of mental well-being, right? And so let's stop there when we talk about mental well-being. Okay? So when we talk about mental well-being, what does that mean? Well, here's the thing. I love this. Mental well-being is a positive state of emotional, psychological, and social functioning. Right? a positive state of emotional, psychological, right, and social functioning. So let me ask you a question. How is your well-being? Well-being includes emotional resilience, the capacity to manage emotions, to cope with everyday challenges, right? And to be able to come back from adversity, emotional resilience, functioning well. Let's talk about that. Feeling competent, in control, and able to work productively or contribute to your community. This mental well-being, right? Sense of purpose, having a sense of meaning in life and feeling positive about oneself. What about this one? Positive relationships. Yeah, let's go there. The ability to establish and maintain meaningful connections with others, right? And when we think about this aspect of people pleasing, here's the question. If you stopped, right? If you stopped overcompensating in all the things, would these relationships still persist? Because sometimes when we are in aspect of people pleasing, people get used to us functioning in a way that benefits them. And so you're giving of yourself, and there's little to no reciprocity. And you accept it because you're wanting to maintain the relationship, right? The security of the relationship, even though you're not getting anything out of it, or getting very little in that sense. But it's okay, because basically you're more consumed and connected with them, like other awareness versus self-awareness. So that's something you may want to process too. The relationships that you have, are they positive? Are they meaningful connections with others? If you cease to do all that you're doing, would these still be meaningful? Would you still have relationships with these individuals? And then the final one, as far as well-being, active engagement, taking pleasure in life and actively participating in activities. These are some of the things that include mental well-being. And when I listed those things, how did you fare? Take time and process that. Functioning well, sense of purpose, positive relationships, active engagement. How did you fare? Because that mental well-being, guess what that does? Enables people to cope with the stresses of life. And let me tell you, with all that is happening in our community, in this nation, it does impact us. There are stressors, not even, in our own families, right? There's a lot going on. And because there's so many things going on, we cannot take our mental health for granted. I'm going to be honest, it is not business as usual with regards to your mental health. And so that's why I'm encouraging us to be vigilant in taking an active role on ways that we protect our well-being. And mental well-being enables us to cope with the stresses of life. And I love this part. How are you coping? How are you coping? Are you coping in effective ways, in healthy ways, right? Because we know that we can develop some unhealthy coping mechanisms. So that's another question. Second part, realize their abilities. I love this. Really realizing, here are the strengths. Here are my strengths. These are the strengths that I have. These are the things that I bring to the table. Or in some ways, have life beat us down so much that we don't even think we have anything to bring to the table. Right? That aspect of self-esteem and awareness, right? And that's a question. Do you realize your capabilities, your abilities? Right? Or do we stay in that negative, record of I can't do anything right, nothing, I can't do anything good, I'm a failure, or anything like that? That's a question. Listen to this. Learn and work well. Having the capacity to learn new things, or have we shut ourselves off to new things and knowledge, right? Being open and work well. How we navigating a work and contribute to our communities. What contributions are we making to our communities? Communities are a part of us, right? That community care. So when we talk about this definition of mental health, it is all encompassing. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I am encouraging you to really take a look, and not only look, when we talk about the, the mirror, there's a passage of scripture in the Bible that talks about, when we look in the mirror, we don't just turn away, from what we see. We need to address it, right? We need to address it. And that's one of the things that I think would be very helpful. That when we talk about looking in that mirror, what do you see? Right? What do you see? Because here it says this: for if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently, and this is James 1:23. He is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror, for he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. We want to take a hard look at our mental health, right? We want to take a hard look at our mental health and a compassionate look at our mental health. Why is that important? Because without mental health, there is no health. And that encompasses all of us as well, right? So I am encouraging you. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. Take some time to really go inward, create some space. One of the things that, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about it because I wanted to just emphasize Mental Health Awareness Month. I am going to go back to that circle of control and the circle of concern, because I know I highlighted a lot of things with regards to the circle of control, what I can control and what I can manage. But I also want to emphasize these areas of what I cannot control, right? It's a circle of concern. I'm concerned about these areas. However, I cannot control them. And the premise is for us to focus our energy on things that we can manage. And so I'll talk more about that next time. But this does still coincide with what I'm addressing today as far as mental health awareness. There are sometimes we cannot manage a lot of the stressors that come with life. Life is lifing. There's a lot of things that are beyond our control. However, there are some things that are within our sphere of influence. And that is being aware, right? Taking an inventory and being aware of our mental health. It is so very important. You're not weak if you're struggling. You're not defective if you're struggling. We are in this world and we will be impacted by it. However, we do have a responsibility of how we address and take care of our holistic self while we're in this world. And that includes our mental and spiritual, all the things. It includes all of these things. This is a holistic approach. And coming against that stigma, the negative stereotypes in all of this is going to be very important, because one of the things that happens is that stigma prevents people from getting the help that they need. Now, I advocate for therapy, right? I do. And let me put this out here. If you've had experience with therapy and you had a negative experience, I get it as to why you're like, well, I don't want to go back. I because it was so negative. And listen, I know sometimes we get in a place where we want to protect ourselves. And so we're like, and being in therapy, it's a very vulnerable place. It really is. But here's what I'm encouraging you to do, though. It is a part of you getting help that you need. And so when we go to a doctor and we don't like that doctor, I know there's some differences there. I know, as far as a medical doctor, I know there's some differences. You're not telling, in many cases, the medical doctor all your secrets are in, those things that are intimate. However, but I need a doctor. And so if I don't like the way this doctor has treated me or anything like that, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to another doctor, right? I'm going to find someone that's going to take care of me in the way that I deserve to be taken care of. And my hope is that's the way you view your therapy experience. And for those of you who've never tried therapy and you've formed some opinions about therapy to say, well, it's just this, because there can be some misconceptions and stereotypes about therapy, the therapeutic process. And if you're in that space, but you've never tried it, well, I've heard what other people, I know you've heard what other people said, but have you had your own experience? So why create a narrative that's not informed by your own experiences? That would be helpful. So for those of you who have not, I would encourage you to reach out and try it, right? Now, I know there can be some barriers and challenges to therapy, to counseling. Some of us do have the resources. And so those who do, I'm encouraging you to try it. Those of you who like, well, you know what? I don't have the resources. Then here's the thing. Then one of the things that may be helpful for us to do with you is to say, okay, then maybe lean into your support system. What does that look like? They're not therapists, but maybe just needing some encouragement or something like that. Those are, we can think of other ways in which you can really tune in to improving aspects of your mental health. Well, listen, that's all the time that I have for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. You know what I always say, my sayings. 1, relentlessly and intentionally pursue authentic and genuine relationships vertically with God, horizontally with others, and inwardly with yourself. 2, maintain and sustain a keen sense of awareness and ongoing discovery about self as well as others. 3, take good care of you and engage in things that are helpful for your mind, body, soul, and spirit. And remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it and continue our journey towards emotional healing. Until next time, bye-bye.
You've been in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, providing a holistic approach to emotional healing with your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell. Please connect with me at talkingwithdrtoy.com or Facebook at Talking with Dr. Toy or email talkingwithdrtoy@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story and hear your heart regarding the issues of life you may be experiencing. Remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening, and please join me next week for Talking with Dr. Toy.